Rotarians and friends from all over the world, welcome to the special meeting and your attention to the President, please. Madam President, it's all yours.
Good evening. The 43rd weekly meeting of the year is called to order. May I request the tech team to please play the theme video, please. Thank you very much. May I now have the confirmation of the minutes of the 42nd weekly meeting held on 29th April, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. May I now request the tech team to play the four-way test video, which is going to be presented by our past president of Rotary Club of Madras, Rotarian Nandita Krishna.
Growing up, you imbibe values and ethics, which you internalize. They cannot be taught, they can only be caught. Once you are out in the world, there are several challenges that you have to face. As a woman, as a parent, as an educationist, and a Rotarian. Rotary is the platform where we can serve society through our chosen occupation. And it is important that we inculcate the four-way test, both in our occupation as well as our daily life. It is sometimes not possible to completely and totally apply the four-way test. But definitely there is goodwill and friendship all around. As a parent, you lead by example and hope that your children will follow and be truthful and honest in their dealings. As an educationist, the responsibility is much greater. You have to ensure that the youth are fair, honest, and ethical in their day-to-day dealings. Rotary has given us all a platform to introspect and align our services to serve society through the ideals of the four-way test, which is to ensure that whatever we think, do, or say is the truth, which will be fair, and through which we can build goodwill and friendship, and it will be beneficial to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, tech team. So I would take this opportunity to welcome all the people who have been logged in and who have joined our meeting today. I'm going to speak very few words, which will be about my club, the Rotary Club of Madras. Our club is the third oldest club in the country. We were chartered on 19th July 1929. As we enter our 95th year, we are proud to state that our club has continuously engaged in community service projects with a view to work among marginalized sections and bring about a betterment in the lives of the people. Over the years, we have had many such outreach programs to our credit. Rotary Club of Madras pioneered the red measles eradication program in 1979. We also pioneered the polio eradication program in the whole of India in 1985. Other than our ongoing projects, Rotary Club of Madras has always been at the forefront of relief and rehabilitation efforts during natural disasters like the tsunami, like the Chennai floods, and more recently, the COVID outbreak. Some of our flagship projects are in the areas of the following: women empowerment, skills development, rural toilets construction, technical training for the disabled, eco-friendly initiatives, and vaccinations. More than that, we as a club, like past President Gopi said, 280 of us, and we enjoy the fellowship and we are committed to the service. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. May I now hand over the proceedings to MC past President Rani Muralidhar, who will take here.
A very good evening to everyone. The tech team may request you to mute everyone so that the speaker is heard well. Thank you. May I now invite Rotarian past President N.K. Gopinath for making the other announcements, including acknowledgement of dignitaries present.
Thank you, Rani. First of all, welcome to our Rotary International President nominee, Stephanie Urchik, and her aide-to-be, Tom Gump, PDG Tom Gump. And we have a host of Rotarians from all over the world. And as I can see, we have past District Governor Ganesh from Wales, from Meredith Titfield, Linda Carlson from Linda, can you just quickly tell me the name of your club? Can you?
Yes, I'm from Canyon City, Colorado, but as you can tell, I'm also from South Wales.
All right, Canyon City,
but also
Colorado.
we're a 1929 club, so we're a sister club of your club.
Good, yes. Then we have past District Governor Andy from Australia, past President Harold from Colombo. And we have 3 DGNs of Stephanie's year. DGN Pinak from Bangladesh, DGN Michael from Australia, and our own DGN NS Saravanan, Sara as we call him. But I'm not sure he's already on the call, but he will be coming in anytime. We also have past President Ahmed Saida from Turkey, and no, from Cairo, Egypt. Sorry, from Alexandria, Egypt, and we have Ahmed Abdul Halim from Lahore, and also I saw one more entering from Lahore Garrison, Pakistan, and we have Giuseppe Farina from Turkey. He's from Turkey, from our he's from our sister club, Rotary Club of Istanbul. And and we have a host of Rotarians from all over India, from the northeast, Kameshwar, Engelbam, from the northeast, from Shillong, right, Kameshwar? Yes. And we have past presidents of the Bangalore club, which is our own daughter club. Sanjay, he's the current president. We have the members from the Rotary Club of Bombay, who are 2 months older than us, but also of the 1929 vintage. We have Ananthanarayan Padmanabhan from the North Fresno, California. It's pretty early for them there, but many Californians are on the call. We have IPDG Dolly Yeep from Thailand, right, Dolly?
No, I'm from
Malaysia.
Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei.
Sorry, thanks.
It's okay.
And we have Arindam Chaudhary. Arindam Roy Chaudhary is from the Rotary Club of Calcutta, which is the oldest club in India. And he incidentally is the son of the incoming RI director, Aniruddha Roy Chaudhary, who will be on your board, Stephanie.
Yes.
So Aniruddha could not join because he's on the plane to New Zealand, I believe. So, right, that's it for now. We have, as I said, many more. I'll come back on this a little later. Rani, back to you.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Past President Gopinath. Only you could have done this for us. I request the tech team to please mute everyone so that we are able to hear.
You'll have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, tech team. I now invite our Rotarian Asha Mathan for Secretary's announcements.
Good day to you all. Birthdays and anniversaries from 16th May to the 22nd of May. On the 21st of May, we have the birthday of Rotarian Kadireshan Adityan. Spouse's birthday, 16th May, we have S. Lalita, spouse of Rotarian Avalli Srinivasan. 18th May, spouse Geeta, spouse of Rotarian R. Ravishankar. 19th May, Smita, spouse of Rotarian D. Harikrishna. 21st May, Samina, spouse of Rotarian Abdul Aziz. For wedding anniversaries, 16th May, that's today, Rotarian Indrani Krishnaya and spouse Parmesh. Happy anniversary, Indrani, if you're on the call. 18th May, Rotarian Past President Rani Muralidharan, our MC for the day, and spouse KG Muralidharan. 19th May, Rotarian M. Seshasai and spouse Kamala. And 21st May, Rotarian Vijay Duga and spouse Sangeeta. I now move on to the announcement of next week's meeting. The 44th weekly meeting would be next Tuesday, the 30th of May, at the IIT Madras Alumni Center in Taramani as part of the vocational services activity. The speaker is Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, and his topic will be India's quest for a global stake in electronics. We plan to have a company visit at the incubation center from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., followed by the meeting at 7 p.m., and this would conclude with fellowship and dinner. Thank you.
Rani, if I may just quickly butt in, I would like to welcome Geeta Manek, the trustee of the TRF, who's on the call. Back to you.
Thank you, Rotarian Asha, and thank you so much, Rotarian Gopinath. It's now my privilege to invite our president nominee, Rotarian Chella Krishna, to introduce the chief guest of the day, Rotary International President nominee, Rotarian Dr. Stephanie Urchik.
Thank you, Rani.
Welcome.
President Jayashree, RI President nominee Stephanie Urchik, Tom Gump, aide to RI President nominee, District Governor nominee 3232 Saravana, galaxy of PDGs, past presidents, governors and nominees from other districts, presidents and members from other clubs, fellow Rotarians from 5 continents at last count, and friends. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce to you RIPN Stephanie Urchik, a member of the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania, and who will serve as RI President for the year 24-25. She will be Rotary International's second ever woman RI President, a trend which is sure to snowball. At the Rotary International level, she has served as RI Director, Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Board, Foundation Trustee, and Chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee and the TRF Centenary Celebrations Committee, amongst numerous other posts. In terms of the projects she has helped facilitate, her involvement has been global, to say the very least. A Rotarian since 1991, she has participated in the very critical National Immunization Day in India and Nigeria. She has helped in no small measure in building an elementary school in Vietnam, a water filtration facility in the Dominican Republic, and has helped mentor new Rotarians in Ukraine. She has helped coordinate a district-wide grant with the Rotary Club of Krakow, which ultimately resulted in mammography equipment and biopsy facilities to be set up in Poland. The Rotary Club of Krakow has credited RIPN Stephanie in their commemorative book for her role in building Rotary in the post-communist Poland. Currently, she is working to connect clubs in the US with clubs in strife-ridden Albania, Kosovo, and war-torn Ukraine to provide educational and humanitarian support. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will agree with me that these extraordinary achievements are only possible by someone who can dispense infinite compassion at a global scale. Only such a person can truly aspire to work on these goals. Stephanie's professional background is in higher education, consulting, and the entertainment industries. She's received her doctorate degree in leadership studies from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania and has been recognized and awarded by the Rotary Foundation and numerous community and international organizations. She will talk to us today on the topic transforming club culture. At a time when Rotary clubs grow older and larger, her vast experience is going to help us understand where we stand and how we can move forward into new models to help generate outcomes for the community and for membership. A strategic renewal, if one may say so, to align and motivate Rotary members. The RIPN, ladies and gentlemen, is not your regular leader. Her leadership track record of motivating groups reminds me of a famous quote in my favorite book, The Little Prince, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. If you wish to build a ship, do not divide the men into teams and send them to the forest to cut wood. Instead, teach them to long for the vast and endless sea. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you RI President nominee for 2024-25, Stephanie Urchik. And as we welcome Stephanie to address us, I recognize the presence of Tom Gump, the aide to the RI President 2024-25. Tom himself is a Service Above Self Award winner from Rotary International. His focused efforts have raised millions of dollars for TRF, and while doing so, he's made his district 100% PHF1. At the same time, he's been awarded the gold level for the Membership Society for new member sponsors. Over to you, Stephanie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President nominee Krishna. What a fabulous introduction. I appreciate it. I hope Tom and I can live up to your wonderful words. Family of Rotary, it is so delightful to be with you this evening. We are so happy to have received the invitation. You know, when I listen to past President Gopi talk about, you know, who's on the call in the different countries, it really makes me proud when we are able to hold these kinds of meetings, because we are truly Rotary International. So Tom and I are delighted to be with you this evening, and we look forward to sharing some thoughts with you. I did have an observation that I wanted to make with you before we begin. You know, I listened intently as Madam President told us about all the things that your club, this club, Madras, is involved in. And I know all of the clubs who are on the call have similar stories. But this particular club has a special connection for Tom and I, because as you know, in Rotary year 24-25, our international convention will be in Calgary, Canada, and you were founded by a Calgarian, James Wheeler Davidson. So there is that special connection for us. And so I appreciated learning that little tidbit. What Tom and I are going to share with you today are some ideas about the cultures in our club. You know, very often we hear from people who say, Well, I used to be in Rotary, but not anymore because I left my club. And that's typically what happens. People leave a club, not necessarily Rotary. You know, all of us who are in business on the call or have been in business, we recognize that when people are not satisfied with a product or a service, they simply take off. And sometimes we never know why. They just take off and they go look for another product or another service, or they do without it. And so that is also what's happening with too many of our Rotarians. You know, club culture is extremely important because we spend so much time attracting Rotarians to come into our organization. It is difficult for us to learn that after 1 or 2 years, they exit. We do not want to be a revolving door. We really want to become a source of strength in our communities and the world, where people who have the hearts and hands for service unite and create lasting change. So that's what we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about the culture of a club. And how do you take a look at your club culture and determine, is it right? Does it need a little tweaking? If it is right, how do you keep it that way? Because club culture becomes the force behind our Rotary activities and events. And it's a compilation of all the behaviors and attitudes of your members. If your club is running smoothly, if you're doing lots of projects, and if the foundation giving is great and you're receiving grant awards and you're attracting and you're growing, then you know that your club culture is on target. But if one or more of those things aren't happening the way you'd like to see it, then it's an indication that perhaps your club needs to shift and needs to transform its culture just a little bit. So right now, what I'd like you to do is a simple exercise. You'll see on the screen that there is a photo of a young woman crossing her arms. So I'd like you to do that also. Cross your arms. Now, when you did that, some of you put your right hand over your left hand, and some put your left hand over your right hand. So whatever you did, I want you to switch it up and do it in a different way. So Tom, when I asked you to switch and do that differently, how did it feel?
Well, Stephanie, it was uncomfortable, much like when my wife makes me take yoga class.
Well, if it's so uncomfortable, if change is so uncomfortable, why do we suggest to clubs that they may want to change their culture?
Well, for the last few years, Rotary International has taken numerous surveys, and what we found out is that people leave their Rotary club because they're not comfortable with their club's culture or environment.
It's the number one reason people leave. So where do we start? So, you know, one of the things we have to do in any examination, whether it's our club, our family, our business, is we have to take a look at ourselves, and that begins with an assessment. At least once a year, it's important for us in our Rotary clubs to ask questions of our members to find out how people feel about how our club is running. That's the starting point. That's the way that you assess where to begin. And, you know, this is like going on a diet. If you have decided that you want to lose weight or gain weight or whatever, you need to step on the scale before you begin, because you need to know where you're starting. Then after you have engaged in whatever activity you need, you step on the scale again, and you can see if you've reached your goal. That's what assessment does for us. It takes us to the starting point so that we know where to begin.
So what we need to do for an assessment is we need to find out what needs to be changed, because if we want to make our club a certain way, we have to figure out what needs to be changed. Like Stephanie says, we want to give our members what they're asking for. And the surveys can also tell us why we need to change and how to do the change. So when we talk about assessments, Rotary has 7 different kinds of assessments, and we will talk about some of those. So Assessment could be as easy if you have a small club. It could be as easy as picking up the phone and calling someone and asking, a few people, do you like where we meet? Do you like when we meet? Do you like how we meet, either virtually or in person? Do you like our socials? Do you like our service projects? And it's interesting whenever you conduct a survey, and if you have a large club like Gopis, if it's 280 people, you're going to have to use some kind of electronic means. Maybe you go to My Rotary and you type in membership survey, member satisfaction survey. There's surveys for the board of directors, there's surveys for the members. And it's interesting, Stephanie talked about you should do it once a year. That's absolutely right. And why is that? Because when we do an assessment once a year, during the year, your club changes. You have people leaving, you have people coming. So what the collective desire, what the club wants to be, may change every year. And when we ask groups such as yours, do you do assessments? Many do not. And then when we ask, when do you do assessment? Most clubs and districts do exit surveys. And Stephanie and I aren't really keen on exit surveys because by that time, it's too late to make a change and to correct the club culture to keep that person. And Rotarians are nice people that might not tell you the real reason why they're leaving. But if you do the survey, there's usually about just a few percentage, less than 5%, that say they're dissatisfied or greatly dissatisfied with the club. But when you actually drill down as to why they're dissatisfied, it's something that can be easily fixed. The number one complaint that most people have is that their club meets in the morning and sometimes they want to meet in the afternoon. Well, if you have a club as large as past President Gopis, and there's 280 people, you could simply start a satellite club.
Can we, Tom, excuse me, Tom, can we just unmute everyone and Tom can, unmute himself, mute everyone. And Tom, you can unmute yourself, I hope.
So when we find out why they're dissatisfied, we need to be flexible. We can make that change. The great thing about making a change is, well, first of all, when you actually do a survey, your members feel like they belong, that they're welcome, because you're actually asking their opinion. And then when you act on that survey, then you keep that Rotarian or that group of Rotarians because you're listening to them and they feel like they belong. They feel like they're getting value from the club. So it's easy to start a satellite club in our example of a group of 8 or more that meet at a separate time. They're still members of your club, but that flexibility is very important. So after we conduct the survey, we are moving on.
So an important thing happens, as Tom mentioned, when you do an assessment, when you ask members in your club, how are things going? You're going to find out things are great, or maybe, oh, this is perfect. I love being in this club and that's fabulous. Or maybe you'll find out that, it's not so great. And so you need to make a decision as a club leader. And we're all leaders from time to time. We either have a title as a leader, as a club officer, or we lead a project or a grant or a social. So we're all leaders. But you may get to a point where you have to decide, am I going to stay with this group and lead some transformation, or is it time to take off? And that in the English language in the United States is what we call fight or flight. Do you stay and fight to change the culture in your club and to make it better? Or do you think the club has no hope and is it time to take off? Is it fight or flight? Now, I have a personal story that I'll share with you here. I am in my 3rd Rotary Club. You heard earlier that my Rotary Club is the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania. That is my 3rd club. When I first joined Rotary, I joined the Rotary Club of California, PA. And as an aside, one of the members in that club was past President Chuck Keller. So what a lucky person I was. As a young Rotarian, I had a godfather in my club, and I was in that club for 10 years, and I was very happy there. But I had a job change, and so I needed to move closer to my place of employment. So I joined a second club, and they were very nice people, but they didn't seem very motivated to do anything. By that time, I was a past district governor. So as you can imagine, I would stand up and I would suggest things or make observations or comments. And frankly, nobody really listened to me. And we went on and on and on, but the club just did not seem to want to change. And my problem was that I didn't have any champions. I didn't have any other people in the club to whom I could turn and say, let's work on this together. So I had become a one-woman show trying to change the club. Ultimately, I decided that it just wasn't the kind of Rotary experience I wanted, so I left the club. But unlike some people who don't know that they can move on to other clubs, I did some research and found the Rotary Club of McMurray. And I've been in that club now for more than a decade, and it's a very active club. And I'm very happy there. So for me, it was fight or flight, and I chose the flight. Let's go to the next slide, Tom. So, I mentioned fight or flight, and, you have to determine which is better based on the circumstances in your clubs. But there's also something I wanted to mention that happens, and it's when you come to that moment, that realization that something isn't right. And it's called the freeze. It's when you realize that your club is not at its best. And you have to decide, is there a problem that you can fix? Or are there issues that you can deal with? And are there enough other people in the club who are willing to help make it move? Because as I mentioned in my example, when you try to do it all alone, that's a recipe for failure. So when you get to freeze, you have a decision to make. And once you make the decision, then you can move in either direction, staying to fix the issue or taking off and looking for a different kind of experience. Next slide, Tom.
So if we feel like we get frustrated and we feel like we can't change our club quickly enough, what we can do is we can work on that. But at the same time, we may want to start a new club. It's been said that sometimes it's easier to give birth than to raise the dead. Well, I haven't personally done either of those, but I have started some clubs. So why would we want to start a new club? Well, starting a new club actually grows Rotary quicker. In my district, we started the Network for Empowering Women, and we added 50 members at one time. It takes a long time to add 50 members to an individual club. Also, these new clubs, they actually retain members longer. Stephanie talked in the beginning about how we lose a lot of Rotarians in our first year. Actually, we lose about 10% of our Rotarians in the first year that they join. And in the first 3 years, we lose about 52% of our members. So why do these new clubs actually retain our members longer? Well, after 3 years, our members are like all of us. They have the lifelong friends in their club, and they would never leave their clubs. We love our legacy clubs. Stephanie's not leaving hers. I'm not leaving mine, even though we've started other clubs. But these new clubs, a lot of them are cause-based clubs. And the cause-based means that they focus their efforts around a particular cause, let's say the environment. So their speakers are about their cause. Those service projects that they do are about that cause. So if Rotary can be the magnet to get these people in and keep them excited about that cause, then eventually they become Rotarians. We have a veterans club that we started. Actually, we started the first ever club to serve veterans in the world. And 2 weeks ago, we had our most recent, what they call bloodletting around the world. We call it blood donation in the US. And they had 4 other service projects all wrapped together. But some of those individuals traveled 2.5 hours to get to their club. Our traditional clubs, most people live or work in the area that they meet. So we also, with these new clubs, attract and retain more diverse members. It's interesting. I love my club, like I said, and we do all kinds of projects. We make food for the hungry. We rake leaves for people who can't rake leaves. We pick up trash along the highway. But if we ask a millennial, come join our club, we pick up trash, it doesn't get a lot of new members excited. And why is that? Because new members, especially millennials, they want to focus on one area. They want to have a great impact in that one area, such as the environment. So we can do that in our clubs with these new clubs. Also, these new clubs expand our reach out into the community in a way that's a little bit more substantial than our traditional clubs, because they're actually looking for new ways to get out in the community. You know, when we started the first ever club in the world to end human trafficking, about 2 weeks after we chartered that club, I was inducting a new member. We're all excited because this member was from Turkey. And about 20 minutes after that induction, I received an email from the then sitting Rotary International president, Mark Daniel Maloney, and he let me know that that was his sister that we just inducted into the club. Now, he had been trying to get her into Rotary for 40 years, 4 decades, but there wasn't a club that met when she could met, and there wasn't a club that actually focused on what she wanted to do, which was end human trafficking. So what we can do is we can listen to those people of action in our community, find out what they want to do, and we could help them form a club that'll meet their needs. Also, these new clubs actually increase our opportunity to partnership. We wanted to start a Rotaract club that was composed mostly of younger people from around the world to focus on the environment. So what did we do? We reached out to SRAG, the Rotary Environmental Sustainability Action Group. And I see some members of that group actually on the call today. They had a list of 120 young people, and we called until we got enough people to have a club, and now we have a thriving club. We also can start new Rotaract clubs. We started a Rotaract club in our district to serve those with autism and their families. So these are just certain things you could think of while you're strengthening the other clubs. So the things to remember, and Andy from Australia can tell you this, it's not hard to start a club. You have people who can help you, your regional membership officers, your DG line, members of staff, and just don't give up an idea because you think it's hard. There's people to help. So Stephanie, why is buy-in important?
So PDG Tom has been talking about, how we grow Rotary with new clubs, and that's certainly, an important way for us to remember that. But most of us on this call are in what I call legacy clubs that have been around for a long time and have been meeting regularly every week. Your club was formed, Madras, in 1929, and I don't know about the rest of the clubs on the call, but my club has been around since the 1920s as well. I'm not going to leave my legacy club. So for me, I'm real interested in the culture of my club, and the important aspects about how it feels to come into my Rotary Club experience. So why we do an assessment every year is to do what's on this screen. It's called buy-in. It's an important way to get the members in your club to feel engaged in what's happening in your Rotary experience. When you ask members for their opinion about what's happening, it gives you 2 important elements. One, it gives you information. So if you do an assessment in your club and you find out that 50% of your club don't like having a luncheon meeting, they'd rather have it another time of the day, that's important information for you to hear. But the second part is that it creates buy-in, meaning it gives every member an opportunity to offer their opinion. You may or may not use anything that a Rotarian may suggest to you, but the fact that you've given him or her that opportunity to be heard is what creates the buy-in. So when you do then have a small transformation, a small change, that person is going to feel, okay, I can jump on this bandwagon because I was part of the process. So buy-in becomes important. So one of the other things that we've mentioned already is that it's so important to find other people in your club who share the same feeling about something that needs to be transformed, that needs to be changed a little bit. And Tom and I refer to these people as spark plugs. There are other people in your club who feel the way that you do. And you know how to find these people. These are the Rotarians who show these qualities that you see on the screen. They're the ones that are always stepping forward and saying, "Yep, let me get involved in this project. Let me help with this global grant." They're the ones who are being creative and they have ideas. So those are the members who are likely going to be your change champions, the ones that will help move that tweak or that transformation forward. But in addition to a change champion, you also have to find a member who will be your catalyst. A catalyst is a little different from a champion because the catalysts are your club members who help to remove barriers, things that are in the way. So say, for example, that you do an assessment and many of your club members say, "There's too much bickering in this club. There's too much infighting going on." And so you find a couple of spark plugs who agree with you, who say, "Yes, we must change this. We must create a different environment in our club. The culture, we have to do better." The catalyst will be the person who says, "There is a course on the Learning Center that Rotary has in microaggressions. And I'm going to bring a laptop next week. Those of you who have laptops, bring them to the club, and I'm going to show you how to access that club. We're going to go into the Learning Center together, and I'm going to show you how to find that course." That's your catalyst. So when you have champions who agree with your change and want to help move it forward, and you have a catalyst who can help take away any barriers, that's when you have the best opportunity for making those little changes happen.
So we often hear, well, I want to make a change. And sometimes our club presidents want to make a change, but they're afraid of alienating the members in their club. So Rotary has come up with what they call a change model. And it's interesting because it's a model that we can follow to institute change within our clubs. And it's interesting when you see this visually, it's in the shape of a wheel. Because remember, if we do that assessment once a year, when we get the change made, we want to do another assessment to see, because new members have come in and older members have left, we want to see if we need to make another change. So we're just going to run quickly through each of these steps. And if you're progressing along a step and it seems like you're moving too fast, you could go backwards and work on the other step before you progress. And we'll talk about a few examples of that. So assess is what we've been talking about when we talk about surveys. That's when we're trying to find out what the problem actually is, the problem we're going to try to solve. We look at the people in the club and see who really wants the change, who really doesn't want the change. Sometimes it tells you how strong the desire to change is. You know, it's interesting. Last year, we received a call from a club president of a small club, 22 members. And he said that half of his club wanted to do away with the four-way test. And the other half was strongly in favor of keeping the four-way test. Well, he asked, what should we do? And so we said, you should do a survey. And when he did the survey, it turned out that there were only 2 people that responded that they wanted to change the four-way test, and the others did not. So sometimes a survey, it'll tell you who's in favor and who's against, so you know how to proceed when you're trying to make that change. So the second step, after you find out what the change is, you design it. That's when you picture what it's going to take to get the job done. If you want to move from an in-person to a hybrid meeting, well, you might need some equipment. The design will tell you, okay, we need a mixer board for the sound. We need an owl camera to make sure we have good visual from everyone around the room. So that's when you actually start thinking about what you need to make the change. And then you have to build it. Now, the most important part about this area of the change model is the communications plan. You're basically going to be painting a picture of what the club could be like if you make this change. You know, one time we were at a president-elect training seminar, and we wanted to be impactful. We wanted all the presidents there to remember one change they were going to make. And so we did this the last exercise of the day before they went back home and eventually to their clubs to implement this change. And we were going along and we asked one gentleman, a president-elect, his name was Troy, we said, what change are you going to make? And he said, well, I'm going to have pie for dessert, which most of the group laughed because they thought that was a small change and that wasn't worth talking about. But it's interesting because a few years later, we ran into Troy, and we can't remember his last name, so we call him Troy the Pie Guy. And his club had actually changed from one who was against change to a very innovative club who was seeking change. And it was all from a simple, they made a change, they had a new dessert, and everyone else started bringing small changes to them. Then they started making big changes. So now they're the second biggest club in their district. But it's important to have that communication piece down. And when you're moving forward, if it seems like people don't understand it, again, you can move back into the communication phase and the building phase. Then comes to the implementation phase. And the most important part about implementation is that you have to nurture the members who are resistant to change. You never want to force change. You never want to have it come down from high. You want people to get that buy-in that Stephanie talked about. Stephanie, can you tell your Byron story? I think that's very instructive when it comes to implementation.
Yeah, I will. You know, I mentioned my first Rotary Club in California, PA. When I joined that club, I came to learn that the man who was the treasurer, his name was Byron, had had that job for 34 years. Now, that was our fault. We should have, as a club, said to Byron, you know, Byron, you've done such a great job as treasurer. Can you put a manual together so that we have something to pass on to a person who will take over? And we'd like you to be in charge of our gala or our grant project or our flag project, anything else. But to have one person in the same job for 34 years is not really spreading the leadership opportunities through the club members.
Well, eventually, Stephanie, you're gonna have to tell me what club that is. If we ever speak to it, we might know how to use that story. But the next thing we want to do is we want to sustain. You know, nobody wants to make a change just to have it go away a year or two later. And this is something that we need to practice from Rotary International and our clubs in the district and zone and everywhere in between. You know, it's interesting. When we ran into Troy, we asked him if he still had his pie for dessert. And he said, yes, we're still getting pie and everybody's happy with it. But how does that happen with that small change or with big changes? It happens by the leader, the club president, bringing in the president-elect and bringing in the president nominee if she or he's already been selected. Because you can be an influencer, but it's really hard to move it on your own. You have to get those other influencers to bring it about. So then we've made that wonderful change. Now it's time to do what? Do another survey to see if we need to make any other changes. So Stephanie, I thought it would be good if we talked about buy-in again, because once we get that change.
Right. So remember, you know, as you do your assessments and as you think about the culture in your club, you want to involve every member. Every member has a say in your club because they are part of what creates your club culture. So ask them for suggestions and, you know, listen to what they have to say. It is one of the best ways to get engagement of your members. And remember, you know, what they say may not really have anything useful, but it's the fact that you've asked them to be part of that discussion. So we've come now to the favorite part of our presentation. You know, we've been talking with you about our club cultures in our Rotary clubs. We want to make sure that they are appealing and attractive and that they're engaging so that people stay with us. But we don't want to leave without making sure that if you have any questions, that we have an answer for you. So Tom and I are open. So I'm not sure who is handling questions, but we are here to answer any.
The question.
Okay, Jerry, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie and PDG Tom, for making us rethink on how we should look at the culture of our club, why we retain the legacy, how we can change for the better. Thank you so much. We are now at the Q&A session. May I request the participants to please type their question in the chat box so I can start asking the questions.
Sanjay had one, Rani, so you could call Sanjay up. Sanjay Chaganti.
Hey, Sanjay, would you like to, maybe to get started, would you like to ask your question directly?
I have a question too.
So let's start with the president then. President, all yours. Please start.
So, yes, we are a 95-year-old club. And we are a large club. We are 280 members. So it is a constant challenge. In fact, my theme for the year itself is engage, empower, because step one has to.
Jayashree, you're breaking.
President,
we have here people.
You're frozen.
Yeah. So how do we make one club engaging enough for different age groups, the older people, the younger members? What is it that we can do to balance this?
Tom, I think you have a lot of examples of how clubs have split off and had different your teacher group that meets. So why don't you handle that question? I think you've got some good examples.
Well, I applaud you. Thank you very much for the question. And I applaud you for trying to bring in different age members. That's wonderful. And one thing that Stephanie and I have learned in our travels throughout the world is you have to have your club and its culture ready to accept members of different ages. Because the last thing we want to do is bring in one young person and then have him or her be there for a month or two and then leave. So we have to make sure that when people come into our club, we do an entrance interview. That's one of the 7 assessment tools that are available. It's actually new this year. Rotary International President Jennifer Jones came up with this, and it's questions you could ask that new member. Maybe they have special skill sets or talents, even as a young person, that we don't have in our club. And even if we have talents, let's say in youth exchange, they may have been with a different organization who did youth exchange, they may have ideas. And when you bring in a person, let's say a young person in your club that's been around for a long time and you have mostly older people, have that person bring in a friend and have a class so they have something to be a part of and they feel like they're not alone in that club. The other thing you can do is you can welcome them. You could put them on a committee when they come so that they know people in the club so they don't feel isolated. They feel like they belong. You could simply put their picture in a frame and put it at a different table once a week so they sit with different people and get to know different people. So it's important to get the culture ready, then bring them in, all ages. And we need young people. We need people who are just retired. We need people's skill sets. So let's not focus on just one, but focus on bringing in as many as we can that are good quality people that'll make our clubs better. Thank you.
Right. You know, there's a concept.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, President, there's a concept called reverse mentoring. And what that means is as younger professionals come into our clubs, Rotaractors come into working with us, there are things that we know that we can share with them. But on the flip side, there are things that they know that they can share with us. Those of you on the call who are in my age group, I don't know how old you were when you first touched a computer, but I was already, you know, a teenager. Today, these young people have computers in their cribs. They just have no fear of it. So we can learn from them. And, you know, when we embrace the concept of reverse mentoring and understand that they know things that we don't and vice versa, I think that's what makes for a very happy experience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. May I go to the next question, which is there in the chat box. This is from Neeraj Bhatnagar. The question is, can someone be a Rotarian without being a part of a club?
There was a Rotary International project, a pilot, that is being paused, and it was called Connect. And it was for members who wanted to be involved in Rotary through a virtual platform, but they were not members of a club. But that has paused. So to my knowledge, Tom, are you aware of anything else? Maybe the hub in GBI?
Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland has a Microsoft Meets platform that allows you to join Rotary without joining a club. And that's a pilot project that's underway right now.
Thank you.
Yes, Sanjay, Rani?
Yeah, Sanjay, would you like to ask your question? Sanjay, I think maybe, are you on mute? Do you need to get
Put it in the
unmuted?
chat.
Yeah, or you, I will look at your question in the chat. So the next question is from Arindam Roy Chaudhary from Rotary Club of Calcutta. So his question is, we are having members getting old, but new members are not getting involved in service projects. How do we encourage them, as most of them are not getting involved?
Well, I think one way is to ask those members as they're coming in what their interest areas are. We know just from research that we do for strategic planning that younger generations have an intense desire to work on the environment. And, you know, when we, as Tom mentioned earlier, when we get to know people as they're coming into our clubs, we can ask those questions. What are the causes you are interested in? What are the things that, you know, you would like to work on? And as you do that with the members who are coming in, that gives you the information you need to then choose your grant projects and choose your community projects so that you are from time to time working on things that make sense to that particular population.
Thank you. I think, yeah, that surely answered the question. The next question is from Geetanjali Dhar. Her question is, many a times a club may be happy with themselves, with their own culture, but the DGs put in so much pressure on the club, presidents who in turn pass on the pressure on members, which in turn makes members leave. How do we tackle this?
Well, that's there are a lot of steps involved in that one. I have some thoughts on it, and then I think Tom would probably have some thoughts on it too. You know, if there are a group of people in a club who feel strongly that they want to serve the community and they're interested in continuing that, that's a fight or flight situation. I think as a group, they could look at forming another club, just creating a new club and, you know, moving away from the culture of that existing club and starting a club that more closely matches what they're interested in doing. So that would be my initial reaction. Tom, how would you approach it?
You know, I agree with you. I mean, we've seen numerous examples, and the one that comes to mind is actually in my district. We had a club who'd been around for a while, and there were a few young professionals who wanted to start their own club. So the club supported that move, and they started as a satellite club, and they would meet in the evening while the sponsoring club would meet during the day at lunchtime. And the young professionals liked that because they didn't have to miss time for work and they didn't have to pay for a fixed cost meal. And then after a while, the club grew big enough where it wanted to form its own club. And an interesting thing happened because the young professionals started actually referring their parents to the sponsoring club, and the sponsoring club actually referred their younger children who were professionals to the other club, and they both grew. And the funny thing, or the kind of sad thing, is the city right next door had the opportunity to do the same thing, and they were a morning club, and they were spiraling down in membership, and they decided, okay, we're going to move to a noon club instead of starting a new club. And then they lost more members, and they moved back, and then to the breakfast a year later, and they lost more members. So I think the key is giving them the flexibility, giving everyone the flexibility. I mean, there's areas of the world, Thailand comes to mind, where they have 2,500 members, but they have 130 some clubs. We have 2,500 in my district, but we only have 70 clubs because they respect their elders. So they start new clubs instead of changing the existing club, which is fine as long as we bring more Rotary members in so we can do more service. Whatever works, we should let people practice Rotary the way they want to practice it. Thank you for the question.
That's absolutely true. You know, the way we do Rotary is not the way Paul Harris did Rotary. And the way that I do Rotary is not the way that Rotaractors are doing Rotary. And that's okay. As long as our basic principles, our core values, fellowship, leadership, integrity, diversity, and service stay intact, as long as our four-way test that was so brilliantly displayed in your video as the object of Rotary, as long as our principles are in place, it really doesn't matter how people choose to do Rotary. How they choose to change the world, as long as those things stay constant, it can happen in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. So here is a challenge that Marianne Izil, I hope I pronounced that right, from San Jose. Her challenge is older Rotarians like in-person meetings, younger member wants to meet on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. So you do a schedule that has some flexibility. You have 2 meetings a month that are in person, you have one that's hybrid, and then the fourth time you have a social or a project or do something different. So, you know, Rotarians are creative leaders. You know, when we face similar challenges in our businesses, we come up with solutions. We figure out, you know, how to make that happen. And that's not any different in our Rotary clubs. We just need to be creative. You know, will we satisfy every single person every single week? Probably not. But as long as we from time to time can satisfy people and they find the value from time to time, that's what will keep them engaged. It's when we completely ignore what a group of our members want that we run into problems, because then they're going to say, there's no value for me here and I'm going to take off.
Rani, there's a question from IPDG Sridhar, and DG and Amelia has her hand up.
Okay, can I read out this question from Sanjay and go to the next?
Sure.
Thank you, Past President. So this is the question from Sanjay Chaganti. Love the energy and concepts presented. Appreciate if you can share a few case studies of how large clubs have changed culture within their existing membership. Don't expect an answer now if may not be possible, but something written down the line could also help.
Well, Tom, let's think about that and get an answer back to Gopi, and then he can share that with all who have been on the call, because there are far too many examples. We'll come up with the best several that we can share with you.
Thank you. IPDG Rotarian Sridhar, would you like to ask the question, or can I read your question?
I think they're all muted.
Okay,
DG and Amelia had put her hand up.
You're unmuted,
Rani.
Yeah, I got the call now. This is to PDG Tom. In this part of the world, at least to the limited experience I had in the last 36 months, the existing clubs, developing members in those clubs are quite easier compared to retaining members and to make them to feel exactly what they wanted from Rotary Club in a new club. Of course, the partial answer is to make the Rotary experience, a pleasant one for them. But most of the times, the youngsters who have got a very wavering mind, we are not able to, get them under one controlled atmosphere where a minimum things only we expect from them. But, their expectations are a bit different, that they would like to serve things, but not in a very in a disciplined way of, a Rotarian, a minimum thing what we expect from them. So I would like Tom to just address this point.
Well, it's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. And it's a temptation, especially when you're a great club like the Rotary Club of Madras, when you have 280 people, there's a temptation to stay and rest on your laurels as opposed to trying to constantly find out what your surveys, what your clients want, what your customers want. And it's interesting because we did this in a few of our clubs in the Metro District where I lived. And it turned out that our survey said that people wanted to actually serve the Afghan community through the refugees that were coming in. So we started a Rotary Community Corps for the Afghan refugees. And what we saw in all 5 of the clubs that got together is there were about 5 or 6 people in each of these clubs that had drifted away from the clubs. They weren't really coming to meetings or socials or projects. But when we started this project, they came in and they helped do that. And so we actually engaged them in a way we weren't engaging before. I had a friend from my club who moved down to Florida, and she was all into international service. We became friends on a trip to Honduras to build a well. And she joined her club in Florida when she moved from, I'm in the middle of the country near the Canadian border, and she moved down to the southeast. And when she joined her club in Florida, they only did local service projects. They didn't do any international service projects. So she quit the club within a month. And so then I helped her start a new club, and now they're traveling to Vietnam and Cuba, and they have 60 people in this club doing all kinds of great things. So sometimes it's just talking to them, finding out what they want, and then letting them serve the way they want to serve. I hope that answered your question.
We can have one more question because there are some felicitations also after that. Rani, we will start with the next question.
The last question for the evening, I think Eleni wanted to ask. So would you like to ask, or have you typed it? I have quite some number of questions here.
Yeah, lots of questions which we can send it across to Tom and get it answered. DJ and Amelia wanted to ask a question.
Amelia has been wanting to ask.
Yeah, DJ and Amelia, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
I think she may have left already.
Okay, fine. Okay, then we can ask another question, and then that could be the last.
Okay. So this question is from Jitendra Kulkarni. The question is, during last 3 months of tenure, President Secretary became inactive. Causes President-elect faces more problems, demotivated. Any remedy?
Tell me again the situation.
So the situation is, during the last 3 months of tenure, President Secretary became inactive.
Okay.
And it is now causing the President-elect more problems, and the President-elect is demotivated. Any remedy?
Well, I think the remedy is very similar to what we talked about with culture, in that the President-elect needs to find those people in the clubs who are allies and are going to be his champions, his spark plugs. Because no person can perform in that situation without having some assistance and some help. So I think the demotivation is coming from the fact that he probably was not ready to start so soon. And he had to jump into high gear. So I really think he needs to look at the club and find who are the people who are going to stand by him and help get him through this period, so that come July 1, he can start his regular presidency year being motivated again, and help the club stay on target and stay focused and meet its goals for this particular year, but enlist help of those members who think like he does.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very profound way of looking at things, and I'm sure it helps many others who might not have voiced it. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie and Tom. And many of us have, very different perspective now, learned to look at things differently. Thank you so much. There are so many more questions. We'll put them all together and share it with you so you could possibly respond to them.
Rani, before you call the DGNs for the felicitation, can I just take a few seconds?
Please do.
Okay, Stephanie and Tom, we had at the last count 137 people on the call, and we had people from Nairobi also added to the countries that were already here, and more people from Pakistan and Canada, Southern Canada, Brampton. There were members from Brampton too. So Rani, now you can take it away.
Rani, you have to call for the felicitation. Yes.
Thank you so much. So it is now our pleasure to welcome all those who would like to offer their felicitations. May I first invite Rotarian Ibrahim Khalil Al Zayed, DPN from Bangladesh.
Thank you very much. Our future world leader, our president, my president, Dr. Stephanie Urchik, of course, PDG Tom Gump, and all the past governors and the district leaders, as well as the club leadership. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us to be part of this historic moment and this August gathering. We always talk about community needs assessment because service projects are our passion. But it was truly eye-opening that while we are passionate about our clients in our service delivery, it is also equally important to look within ourselves and deliver to our internal clients and to do the club assessment. So it was certainly a wonderful experience for all of us to think along these lines. And I'm sure I shall convey this to my district. While, of course, I mentioned my district, I carry best wishes from district in the world, District 3281 Bangladesh, where currently we have about 314 clubs with about 9,000 members. I do have the privilege of being the first governor in 24-25 when we will bifurcate. But then again, as I'm doing the numbers, I will still have between 180 and 200 clubs. So I'll still have around 6,000 members. So, so that's the challenge. But I think all in all, when we have dialogues like this, and it is our platform where we can put the best of minds from all over the world, because in today's Zoom meeting, we have Rotary Club of Madras, and of course, congratulations to you all as you embark. Pretty soon, you shall be reaching your centennial milestone. I'm sure some of us in this call will be present for that historic moment. But all in all, thank you, thank you, thank you to the club, and of course to our leaders and the aide for allowing us to be part of this call. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can I call for the next felicitation, or would you like to respond? So may I now invite DG and NS Saravanan from District 3232 to please offer his felicitations.
Good evening. Let me offer my thanks to the world leader, Rupani and EDG, Tom, for coming to our district online. Wonderful district. And the kind of questions which is non-stop, it shows how important this topic was. And I'm sure such sessions will need multiple sessions. And when I met our world leader, Shifani, at Abu Dhabi, I was so happy, such a passionate leader. And, we are all eager to have a wonderful 24-25. And I'm sure we'll also meet soon in Melbourne. And let me take this opportunity, Stefani, to invite you in person to this lovely district during your tenure. And I'm sure we will become more vibrant in your plans. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My hello to all my co-governors who are across the world here and all the other friends. Thank you very much. God bless.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rani. I would just like to say one thing to our Rotary International President nominee. In Rotary Club of Madras, we have a tradition that we plant trees based on the number of years. So we have a center where we house underprivileged boys. They stay there and they study. A huge garden, and we will be planting 119 trees to commemorate the 119th RI President, which is you. So when you come to Chennai, it will be our pleasure to take you to walk through that garden.
That is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Rani, you're muted.
Thank you. May I now invite Rotarian past President N.K. Gopinath to please propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rani. First of all, many thanks to RIPN Stephanie Urchik and past district governor Tom Gump, who will be the aide in 24-25. For a masterclass, I would just say that, this was something absolutely eye-opening as to how we can take the clubs forward. And I cannot stop but, mention about our club here. Although we are in the 95th year, the leadership that this club has built is unparalleled, I would say, because we've had 95 different individuals lead our club. And going forward, we have another 3 different individuals, and I'm sure this tradition will continue. Of course, we do have this, dialogue between members, younger members and older ones as to the traditions, whether to follow it or not. Some of us are sticklers for traditions, and the younger ones they say, well, this is not really required. But that apart, this club is blessed with members who are really leaders in their own right, as it should be in every other club. But the point is, except for one Rotarian president in the 1933, 34, 34, 35, when none of us current members were even born, that was the only year where they repeated a president. And thereafter, in another year, we had 2 presidents. So ultimately, we have 94 presidents in 94 years, and going forward, 95, 96, 97. So thank you very much for a wonderful exposition of how to take the Rotary clubs forward in the changed environment. And as there are many DGNs of your year on the call today, and
I know.
I can't mention all their names, but I would like to mention DGN Amelia, even though she probably has left, who pinpointed what Tom said, and I don't know whether I'm quoting him correctly, when he said it's easier to deliver a new child, a new club, rather than raise a dead one. So, and she mentioned it as probably the saying of the year or so, and something like that. So thank you so much. It was really wonderful. There are many questions which are not, we have not been able to ask you. We will put everything together and I'll send it to Tom. And if time permits, if you can answer them, we will send it to the people. And of course, the recording is there. We will send it to everyone who's on the call and also who is not on the call. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
Right.
very much.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
meeting is closed.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you all in Melbourne. See you all in Melbourne.
Yeah, Neeraj.
Yep. Are you going, Gopi?
No, Neeraj. Thank you. Sorry, I'm unfortunately not going, but PDG Krish and PDG Kamdar from my club are there for sure.
Thank you, Gopi, for inviting me.
Thank you. We must thank you for having attended.
Thank you, Gopi.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stephanie. If you're still there.
Yeah. Gopi, goodbye from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Nurul. Thank you, and thank you,
Bye-bye.
Pinak.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
If you
you.
come to
Bye.
Melbourne, look me up. I'll look after you when you get here.
Sure,
Take care.
Michael. Thank you very much, Michael.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the invitation. Thank you so much.
Nagjoti, thank you very much for coming. And he mentioned Esrag, of which you're an important member.
Gopinath ji, thank you. This is Kiran Ingle from Pune.
Kiran, welcome, Kiran, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all so much
everybody.
for
Good
making this a
I'm
wonderful.
so
Good night.
happy to join this
Thank-
meeting after a long time. RCM regular meeting member.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gopinath.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gopinath Madras. So
Thank
we
you.
were looking
I'm
forward.
EPNC
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
and good
Gopi.
night.
I'm Gopi.
Bye.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank
Siddharth.
so much.
Full meeting.
Thank you.
I wish every Rotarian could have attended this.
Yes, it is a masterclass, as I said.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would request everyone. I would request everyone to join ISRAG.
Yeah, Esrag. Lots of members from Esrag on this call here today.
Yeah.
All right, Ganesh. So you could probably close the meeting and then ensure that the recording is there as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Good night.
You're muted, Ganesh. But
Hi, darling.
Can you hear me?
Bye-bye.
yeah, Venkatesh. Welcome, Venkatesh. Sorry, I didn't noticing you only now. Vellore.
Good night.
Kameshwar, we couldn't ask your question. We will send it
Good
across
night.
to them.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
We'll send
It's
it across
okay.
to them and get you the reply.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Ganesh, you can close the meeting now.